Welcome into the Main Event Broadcasting Network. I'm Danielle Percival, Assistant Director of Athletic Communications here at Piedmont College. Today we're joined by the head cross country and track and field coach Jeff Jenkins, who's beginning his inaugural season here at Piedmont. Well, Coach Jenkins, thanks so much for joining us. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Of course, this is your first season here at Piedmont, so I'm sure there have been a lot of adjustments to make, but what have been some of the transitions that you have had to make trying to build that relationship with these new athletes?
Certainly, and anytime you come into a new program, a lot of things are going to be different, and there's definitely a transition period here. I think the training is probably the biggest transition. Understanding who has been doing what and understanding how I'm going to fit them into my philosophy and training. And some people fit very well, and some people it takes a little bit of transition, and trying to do that in the right way without injuring athletes or asking them to do too much. And some of them may be doing more than what so I had to back them off a little bit. But the transition is getting a little smoother as we get into the season.
Of course, talking about that training, you're getting ready to start the season, so you'll see what that training has really been able to provide for these athletes this upcoming weekend as you guys are getting started at Western Carolina. So what are you really looking to get out of this first meet, really getting a feel for these athletes for the first time?
Absolutely. At this point, we haven't got a whole lot of conditioning under our belt, and we would certainly like to have another 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. But in this position, we're in a unique position because we're not racing an 8K on the men's side or a 6K on the women's side. It's 2 miles for the women and 5K for the men, so it's much shorter. It's an evening race. It's going to be hot, so we don't expect anything great. But we're looking for competition. We're looking to see how they compete head-to-head against other people. We're not expecting to have any other conference competition there, but I think that we'll have some good people to gauge off of in that sense.
Speaking of conference competition, you guys will be facing a couple of conference teams throughout the season, including going to the Maryville Invitational as well as heading up to Greensboro, which is actually going to be at Hagenstone Park, the same site as the USA South Championship meet. Why is that something that you feel is important, getting some of that conference competition as well as kind of checking out the championship site?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is for one, is getting to see that championship site and run that course so that we can know the ins and outs of that, so that we can kind of create visualization and realize what we're going to do in that championship meet when it all counts. Seeing the conference competition there, seeing the schools that have picked to finish in the top of the conference, not only Greensboro and Maryville, but Berry as well. I think we'll see a lot of people at all 3 of those meets. And oftentimes we can look at things on paper and see how fast other runners are running, but in cross country, times kind of go out the window when it comes to a championship race. It's all about head-to-head competition, who can beat who. So I'll be interested to see how our runners fare against their runners head-to-head, regardless of what the time shows at the end.
In the preseason conference poll, your men's team was picked to finish 3rd, the same spot that they finished last year in the USA South Championship meet. So what are your expectations for this men's team as they are entering 2014?
Well, we don't hang our hat a whole lot on preseason polls. I think that it is a good gauge to see what other schools think that you have. And the way that we look at things, some teams fare, as far as the points may fall, they may fare a little better than us going into the season on paper. But again, that doesn't necessarily matter. Some people have freshman guys that are expected to finish in the top, but those guys have never raced an 8K before, so they might be prepared for what's going to be coming. And I think that we have a decent amount of depth from 1 to 5. After that, we do kind of drop off a little bit. But from 1 to 5, I think that we have some good depth, better than some of the top schools in the conference that were picked 1 and 2. I think that if we can improve our 5, get our 5th to run better, our top 3 are going to handle what they're going to handle. But I think that we can fare definitely in the top 3 that we were picked. I think that we can possibly improve on that.
Of course, on the women's side, picked again in the top 5. So what are your expectations on the women's side this season?
Well, there are more schools on the women's side, and we've added schools to the conference on the women's side. So that's going to be a little bit tricky to try to figure out what we're going to be able to do, and I'll be able to see a lot more as the season goes on. But I definitely think that we're a top 5 team based on my calculations and what I see. Again, that's all on paper. We have a similar situation on the women's side. Our difficulty is the spread from 1 to 5 is quite large. So if we can close that gap in, we're not looking to have an individual conference champion. It's possible, but we're looking to have some people finish all together, somewhere around anywhere from 5th place to 15th place. So we want to group those ladies in together as close as we can. If we can do that, we can improve on our preseason ranking for sure.
Now, we've looked at the team, but moving to individually, who are those student athletes who have really stood out to you as leaders? Of course, you've had them in practice, you've seen them in team meetings. Who are those people that you really are thinking you're going to be drawing from for leadership?
Right. I think that a lot of times the top athletes kind of naturally become leaders. On the guys' side, Cody Parker, our returning top guy, was a freshman last year, a sophomore this year. He's doing a pretty good job. I think Bryce Thorson as well. Right now, he's looking like our number 2 guy, and he's bringing that senior leadership, and he's really keeping the spirits up on the team when guys have bad workouts and things like that. He's doing a really good job of that. On the women's side, we have some senior leadership for sure, but our top 2 girls are both sophomores, so it's a young squad at the top. But I think that everybody is kind of combining to make sure that everything is running smoothly and everybody is doing what they need to do in order to be successful.
And you yourself are in your inaugural season, but you've also brought on a new assistant, Ian Lane, who is helping out as well. So how do you factor in having that new assistant with you as well to kind of help out throughout the season?
Well, Ian works great with the athletes individually. He's able to motivate them and relate to them on a very personal level. And he makes, sometimes where I make things a little more strict and I make things more structured, he makes things lighthearted, and it's a good balance for both of us to have that. And I think that's helping us a lot. Ian has really, the biggest thing he's bringing to us right now is his recruiting abilities. He has shown that he can really go after the athletes and get people that we need for the fall of next year.
Well, Coach, we're certainly looking forward to seeing what you guys bring to the table here in 2014 in your inaugural season.
Thanks, Danielle.
And that's a wrap here on the Main Event Broadcasting Network. I'm Danielle Percival, Assistant Director of Athletic Communications. Thanks for joining us.